Hi guys, so it's been quite a while since I filmed a video. I don't know if I filmed any videos in May, but yeah, with just everything going on, I just haven't had the motivation. But I am feeling inspired today. I went on a walk this morning, and I started a vlog, and so I was like, I'm in the filming mood, so I'm gonna film a video as soon as I get back, just so I don't lose that momentum. But I'm here today to talk about all the books. Not all, well, because I haven't filmed any videos recently, I'm not going to talk about every single book I've read the last 2 weeks. I'm just going to talk about the books either that were on my TBR or books that stood out to me more than the others. So yeah, and also I want to mention I got my hair cut. I didn't go to a salon. My boyfriend actually cut it for me. I it's not exactly the length I wanted, but we had some miscommunication. But I'll live with it. It's a little yeah. So anyway, it's good that it's not on my neck because all that like long hair. I it was like really long. It's like longer than I normally have it. And so with this summer and this heat, having it off my neck is really nice. So yeah, it actually, I guess it turned out, better better than I initially expected. Because I was like, oh my gosh, it's so short. But I think it's going to work out in the end, and it's going to grow back. And so yeah, I'm following along with. I think I've seen a lot. I've seen several people even buzz their hair, and I was like, I actually contemplated that, but I was like, I don't know. I think I would like it the first day, and then regret everything the next day. So yeah, the first book I want to talk about is Julia Quinn's The Girl with the Make-Believe Husband. And this is a Bridgerton series prequel. And this I read for, I buddy read a book last month. And so me and a couple of other romance readers were talking about our favorite romance books. And so this was one of their favorite books from the list. And I read last month The Duke and I think it was, The Duke and I, and by Julia Quinn. And so I was like, I saw this one on the list. I was like, oh, perfect. I can get more of a feel for Julia Quinn's work. And this is following Cecilia and Edward. So Cecilia, and this is kind of unique, Regency era. I don't know if it's Regency era, because she's actually going to America from England because her brother Thomas was fighting in the Revolutionary War, and he has gone missing. And so she comes over to see if she can find him. And when she's there, she can't find her brother, but she does find her friend Edward. And but he is in a coma in the hospital, and so she can't visit him because she's a friend, not a relative. And so she lies and says that she is his wife. And he wakes up and has amnesia. And so she just continues the lie and says that we got married, and so, he can't remember. And so that storyline, I didn't like it, her deception. And she had many moments of in situations where she could easily have told him, but she continues the lie. And so he just believes that they're married. And that, the deception along with the amnesia storyline, I don't want stories with amnesia. But yeah, I like the twist of, it's set in America. But yeah, and then the constant, the inner dialogue of her thinking about her guilt, about lying, and then his story was okay. He can be understandable because he was being duped. But yeah, I'm glad to have read it and get a more feel for Julia Quinn's work. I'm not exactly sure if she's an author for me. I don't know. This one and the Duke and I weren't that impressive. so maybe I read something else that maybe has would appeal to me more. So yeah, there was that one. And then the Evil Men Do by John McMahon. This is the second book in the Detective P.T. Marsh series. And this is a new author to me. I think this is only his second book. And so I know lots of thrillers or mysteries. There's a long, many books in the series. And so I'm happy to start at the beginning, right when they're coming. Yes and no, because you're following a new author, a new series, but I don't have tons and tons of books backlog to read right now. But yeah, so this is following P.T. Marsh and his sidekick Remy Morgan. And what I like about this was set in a small town outside of Atlanta, and so you really get a feel for being in that small southern town. And it's following the murder happens is that the I think it's like the mayor, his buddy doesn't show up to a card game, and so yeah, he contacts P.T. Marsh as a detective to go see what's happening, and they don't realize he's murdered. But when they get there to the house, they realize he is found dead, and so the story like unravels from there. I don't want to give anything away, but yeah, there's lots of influence from the city that are affecting the small town, and the person who died, he wasn't exactly a stand-up guy, and so you find out more about his background and with his dealings, he's like with the town and what's going on. But yeah, so I really like the pacing of it, and I like the you have like the cop and you have the psychic, and they're I like the cop thrillers. And so after reading that, another like police procedural. That's what I was thinking of. This is Stone Cross. This is the second book in the Arliss Cutter series by Mark Cameron, and this is another series that I'm following from the ground up. The other one, The Evil Men Do. I haven't read the first one, but I'm just gonna start with the second one and go on. And this is following Arliss and his like sidekick as Lola, and speaking of small towns, he's based in Anchorage, Alaska, but he gets sent to this really small like village way out in the middle of nowhere, and you really get a sense of atmosphere with this one, kind of like with the Atlanta one, but this one's a lot more you're fighting the elements because they take a bush plane there, and when they get dropped off, there's lots of fog rolling in, so when they land, they're not going to be able to leave until the fog dissipates, and because it's coming on to the winter season, so the river is starting to become very icy, and so their only way in is through a plane, and so they initially are sent there because they are protecting the person who's visiting, who has gotten some death threats. But when they arrive, there's a lot more going on because there is a murder and a kidnapping that takes place, and so they use all sorts of ways to find out what's going on. They use like sled dogs, and they're hiking through this the rain and the snow and the cold, and they also like the village. You kind of get a feel for like the culture, the food that they eat, like like beaver tail and like lots of like fatty foods because to protect themselves from the frigid cold. And so yeah, this one I really liked. I for sure will be continuing on. And when I was looking at the author in the back, he was talking about how he was a policeman himself, and I think he was like based in Anchorage. He was in Texas, and then he moved to Anchorage, and so he has like real life experience for these books. So I thought that was kind of cool. Move Winnie here because she's tilting over, so she's just gonna fall right over if I don't fix her pillow. I then switched to some nonfiction, and this one wasn't on my Springathon TBR, but the books I think I picked like 5 or 6 books for the prompts, and so that it's like maybe like find some other ones that fit that kind of genre. And this is A Naturalist at Large: The Best Essays of Bernd Heinrich by Bernd Heinrich, and this is an author I really like. I've read his Mind of a Raven and his Winter World and Summer World, and I highly recommend this author. A lot of his stories are set in Maine, where he lives, and so I can just a little description of some of the stories in here. The essays span several decades with him at home in Maine. It says he plays host to visitors from Europe, from the cluster flies, and more welcome guests from Asia, the ladybugs, and as far as Botswana, where he unravels the far-reaching ecological consequences of elephants' bruising treatment of mopane trees. And so you get all sorts of snippets, like squirrels and birds, of course. And so yeah, I really like this. And so maybe if you don't want to dive into a whole book, of Bernheinrich, then this will give you, lots of little tastes of different, nature writing that he's focusing on. I then read Beyond Words, What Animals Think and Feel by Carl Safina. And this follows elephants, whales, and wolves. And you really just, he focuses mostly on their societies. And he makes a point of saying how he doesn't, not even always agree with the behaviorist and like the psychological brain studies they do in labs, because he said he's constantly making a point of those situations are very much contrived and they're not what you see in the wild. And so along with his thoughts, he also interviews people out in the field who are working with these animals in their natural environment. And so yeah, I really, really like this book. I really like the writing. It was just phenomenal. And I have another book by him I'm reading, Becoming Wild, I think is the name of it. And I'm reading that later on this month. And this is also for the Springathon, Readathon. And then another book I want to highlight is Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DeMillo. And this is one that I wanted to read after the middle grade March, and I didn't get to this one. And so it came through my library. I was like, okay, now's the time. And I've never seen the movie or anything. And this is following a little girl named, let's see, what is her? Opal. And Opal and her father, they move to a new area, and she lost her mom, and she doesn't have any friends. But she finds Winn-Dixie, a stray dog in a Winn-Dixie grocery store. And so she adopts the dog and names it Winn-Dixie. And her and the dog, they encounter all sorts of characters, young and old, in the town, and make friends through the dog and through her as well. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this story, and I for sure will want to read more of Katie DeMillo. She has several I saw listed at the library. So this is the one that stood out to me most because that's the one I recognized. And the first, like the little town I grew up in, the only grocery store in the whole area was a Winn-Dixie. I don't know if they're still running or not because that one closed down. But yeah, it brought back kind of like fond memories of going in that store. And then And They Called It Camelot by Stephanie Marie Thornton. This is a novel of Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis. I think I pronounced her maiden name correctly. But this, come on, Winnie. She'll be mad if she just topples over. Well, she'll land on her feet. But this is following Jackie Kennedy, and through her childhood, her marriage to John F. Kennedy, and her marriage to Aristotle Onassis, and her life after that as well. And I've never read a biography of her. I've read a biography of John F. Kennedy, and so this made me really want to pick up some nonfiction. Put my knee up here so you can see her still. Some nonfiction by her. I mean, not by her, of her, because it was just really interesting. And this author has also written a historical fiction on Alice Roosevelt, who is quite the character, and she makes an appearance in this book when one of these gallows that they go to. I think it's at the White House, and just the spunk that Alice has. I for sure am going to go back and read that book. And also, I want to read a biography of Alice Roosevelt because I've read books on the Roosevelts, but I haven't nonfiction books, but I haven't read one on Alice. And so yeah, I'm for sure going to be picking up nonfiction for both of them and the fiction of that one as well. But yeah, because I haven't read any biographies of Jackie Kennedy, I don't know how true was it. Like in the back of the book, she talks about what she's switched up and to make things more streamlined, and some things she's advanced, and some things she's taken out of it. But yeah, she lived quite a hard life, even though she came from a very wealthy family, and she married a very, very wealthy family. She had a second marriage to like a gazillionaire. She still had lots of trials and triumphs. Her mother, she didn't always have the best relationship with her, and her sister, she was constantly from the very beginning very competitive with her. She didn't have as much of a loving relationship, it seemed like. And her marriage to John F. Kennedy, was filled with him constantly, sleeping around, and it was kind of like thrown in her face sometimes, and so yeah, it was it was very interesting to read, but overall it left me kind of depressed in a way because like the story, because I knew the JFK assassination was coming, and like the first chapter it starts on that, and then you jump back in time, but so yeah, I don't know, I liked it, but it kind of left you like a somber on a somber note. And then the last one I talk about is Love on Lexington Avenue by Lauren Lane, and this is the second book in the Central Park Pact series, and this is another one that I read for the romance group, and this is someone else's favorite book. I can't remember which one picked which. Which booktuber picked each of these books from their list, but yeah, this is following what's her name, Claire, and she so the Central Park Pact is that these three women were either dating or were married to this guy, and he died. And then they found out after the fact that he was cheating on all of them. And so they decided they actually become friends. And so they make a pact to look after each other, and they form a friendship. And this is following Claire, who she considers herself like very vanilla and boring and beige, she says, and so she wants to like spice up her life and and do things out of her comfort zone, and so she is going to renovate her townhouse, and she's sick of like the boring bland. It's also like kind of like crumbling apart, and so she hires a contractor, Scott, and he also is kind of like jaded on relationships, and it's like their coming together story, and you also get I really like the side characters who also have their own story from the Central Park Pact, from that friendship. You get lots of background on Audrey, who is like that's the book I read recently, I think Marriage on Madison Avenue, something like that. That was following Audrey, and then the first book is following Naomi, who is like a very like spunky character, and so yeah, I really like this friendship story. And the relationship as well. And I liked how all of like the relationship with like all like her sex scenes were like behind closed doors, which is the kind of writing I like with romance stories. I don't like any explicit content at all. So yeah, I really appreciate that as well. So if any of you want to read romance but don't like to read any of that, then yeah, I would recommend this series. So those are all books I want to talk about. I thought I'd also show you my TBR, like how it's going, because I haven't, in March, I filled out a TBR, a list that I wanted to do because I had so many different readathons I was participating in. And then in April, I completely stopped that because, I wasn't really participating in any specific readathons or anything like that. But for May, I am, and so I thought I would show you where I'm at with it. All the highlights are the ones that I've read, so I have quite a few that I still need to read. Some of them I'm in the middle of, but the only one I've DNF'd so far is Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. I think is his name, Eric Erickson, something like that. Because it's a huge series, and they're all really big books, and I just did not get on. It's a fantasy series, and I didn't like it at all. It was like it was unnecessarily vague, and then once I understood what was going on with the plot, the plot didn't motivate me at all to continue on reading it. It was kind of like simple. I don't know if that makes sense. It was complicated, overly done, but for nothing, for no reason. I didn't think. So yeah, I still need to read all of my BookTube prize books. Patsy, 10 Minutes, 38 Seconds in the Strange World, and Lost Children Archive. I'm in the middle of 10 Minutes. These are all, I'm on the fiction round for the BookTube prize this go around, and I have to read them by the end of May, and so I really need to get on that. The 10 Minutes, I've been reading 10% a day, because to be honest, I can't say anything. But it's trial, if I can say that, because I am not a huge literary fiction reader, and so yeah, these are all out of my comfort zone, and so yeah, I'm just making myself read some of these each day because I know I have to finish them. And so once I finish some of the books I'm currently reading, I'm for sure going to be focusing on those because I have to read those. And then I also have my Newbery winners. I have 3 more to read from that, and then I just have 1 more book for the romance group to read, and then a couple more of Springathon, because even though the Springathon, they are that's finishing in the middle of May. I'm just going to continue on and make it the full month of May so I can read all of them. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these books, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, BookTube.